Imagine this. You wake up in the morning. Before you even open your eyes, there's already a voice in your head. It tells you, you didn't sleep enough. You're going to be tired today. Look at all the things you have to do. You'll probably mess some of them up. You should have done better yesterday. And even before you take your first step out of bed, your entire day has already been shaped by a voice that may not even be yours. But here's the question that will change your life. If you can hear that voice, if you can observe it, then who exactly is the one listening? This is where the journey begins. In the quiet corners of our everyday lives, where we mistake that endless stream of inner chatter for who we are. Most people grow up never questioning it. From the earliest days of childhood, we remember hearing ourselves inside our own minds. At first, it's playful. Imaginary friends, make-believe conversations, dreams of what we'll do when we grow up. But slowly, as life begins to add its weight, that inner voice shifts. It's no longer just play. It becomes critical, doubtful, fearful. A child who once dreamed of flying suddenly hears, "That's impossible. People will laugh at you. You'll never make it." Think back to when you were young. You may remember drawing on a piece of paper, showing it proudly to an adult, only to hear someone laugh or criticize. That moment plants a seed. The voice returns later, whispering, "You're not good enough." And from then on, every time you try again, the voice repeats the same line, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, but always there. It becomes the narrator of your story. But what if I told you that this narrator isn't actually you? That it's a collection of echoes from your parents, your teachers, your culture, your fears, your past experiences, and yet because it speaks from within, you believe it. You confuse it with yourself. There's a strange paradox about being human. We are the only creatures, as far as we know, that hear this kind of constant dialogue within our own minds. A dog doesn't wake up in the morning and think, "I really should chase fewer squirrels today." Birds don't sit on a branch wondering if the other birds think they look silly when they sing. And yet we, with our astonishing intelligence, often become prisoners of a voice that never stops talking. You may have noticed this in school. Remember, the first time you had to stand up in front of the class and give a presentation. Your palms were sweating, your heart was racing, and even before you opened your mouth, that voice inside was shouting, "Don't mess up! They're going to laugh. You're going to forget everything. Why did you even agree to do this?" You hadn't even spoken a single word, and already you were defeated by someone or something inside you. The same thing happens in relationships. You meet someone you admire, and you want to connect. But then the inner voice appears. "You're not interesting enough. Don't say that, you'll sound stupid. They probably don't even like you." And suddenly, instead of being present and real, you shrink back into yourself, obeying a voice that may not even belong to you. What's so fascinating is that we rarely stop to question this. We take for granted that the voice is who we are. But if you pay attention, you'll notice something remarkable. The voice often contradicts itself. One moment it tells you, "Take that chance, you might succeed." The very next moment it whispers, "Don't even try. You'll embarrass yourself." If this were truly you, wouldn't you at least be consistent? Instead, the voice behaves more like a nervous commentator, a sports announcer who never stops speaking but has no real power over the game. Let's go deeper. Imagine a young woman growing up with dreams of becoming an artist. She paints as a child. She feels alive whenever she touches a brush. But slowly, as she gets older, the voice in her head starts repeating the words she's heard from others. "Art doesn't pay the bills. You'll never make it. You're not as good as the others." And little by little, she stops painting. She studies something practical. She works a job she doesn't love. And late at night, when no one is around, she feels this quiet emptiness. It's not that she failed. She simply obeyed the voice. Or take a young man who dreams of starting his own business. Every fiber of his being wants to create, to build, to risk. But just as he's about to take a step, the voice intrudes. What if you lose all your savings? What will people think if you fail? You're not smart enough, not disciplined enough. And so he listens. He waits. He convinces himself that someday later, when the time is right, he'll do it. But the time never comes, because the voice never stops. Here's the truth: that inner voice is not really you. It's like a program installed into your mind, shaped by society, past pain and fear. You are the awareness that hears it, not the chatter itself. The fact that you can notice it means there must be something deeper, something quieter, that is the real you. But before we reach that realization fully, let's stay in this stage of life where the voice feels so real, so dominant. Think about your teenage years. For many, this is the loudest period of the inner critic. Every decision feels like it will define your entire future. You hear the voice comparing you to others. They're smarter than you. They're better looking. They're more popular. And you start believing it. How many opportunities are lost because of this? How many friendships never formed, dreams never pursued, simply because a voice said, "Don't." And yet, in rare moments, something breaks through. Maybe you took a risk once, spoke up when you were afraid, tried something new despite the fear, and you discovered a strange freedom. You realized that even when the voice screamed, life didn't end. In fact, sometimes it got better. These are the cracks in the armor, the signs that the voice doesn't hold as much power as it claims. Think of the first time you laughed at your own thoughts. Have you ever noticed that? You're sitting there, worrying endlessly about something, and suddenly you catch yourself thinking, "Wow, my mind is really dramatic today." In that moment, there's a glimpse of who you truly are. The one who can step back, observe, and smile. That's not the voice. That's you. But for most of life's early stages, we don't yet know this. We still identify with the chatter. And so, we carry the weight of criticism, doubt, fear. Some people become perfectionists, trying to silence the voice by doing everything flawlessly. Others withdraw, avoiding risks to avoid the voice's wrath. Still others fight it aggressively, becoming angry or bitter, thinking that if they shout louder inside, they can drown it out. But no matter the strategy, the voice persists. And here's the painful part: because we believe the voice is us, we start shaping our identity around it. We say things like, "I'm shy." But maybe you're not truly shy. Maybe the voice is just loud, telling you to stay quiet. Or we say, "I'm not creative." But maybe you are deeply, and the voice has simply convinced you otherwise. The danger isn't that the voice speaks. The danger is that we mistake it for truth. Let me share a story. A boy grows up in a small town, constantly told by his teachers that he's average. He hears it so often that the voice inside him starts repeating it daily. "You're just average. You'll never stand out." One day, he enters a science fair and builds something simple but unique. To his surprise, he wins. For a brief moment, the voice goes silent. He feels the rush of possibility, but the next morning, the chatter returns. "That was luck. Don't get carried away. You're still average." He spends years caught in this battle, between glimpses of his real potential and the endless pull of the inner critic. Sound familiar? That's because we've all lived some version of this. Some of us still do, every day. The truth is, the inner voice isn't going away anytime soon. But what if life isn't about silencing it, but about recognizing it for what it is? Not the commander of your destiny, but just noise. Not your identity, but a cloud passing through the vast sky of who you really are. And so, as we move through these early stages of life, we begin to realize something subtle but powerful. The voice can be observed. It can be noticed. And if you can notice it, that means it cannot be the deepest, truest part of you. That realization is the seed. It may not fully bloom yet, but it is there, waiting. And one day, it will grow into the understanding that changes everything. Your inner voice is not really you. There comes a time in everyone's life when the voice inside the mind begins to feel heavier than the world outside. It no longer whispers, doubts in small moments. It begins to dictate the direction of our lives. You might remember the first time you wanted to take a leap, to step outside of your comfort zone, and the voice rose like a wall in front of you. Don't do it. You'll fail. People will laugh. You'll regret it. And so you held back, convincing yourself that it was caution or wisdom, when in truth it was fear disguised as your own thoughts. Think about the thousands of people who carry hidden dreams, never spoken aloud, because the inner voice has already decided their fate. A woman who longs to sing but never dares to stand on a stage. A man who dreams of writing but never finishes a single page. A student who dreams of traveling but convinces themselves it's impossible. These are not failures of talent or potential. They are victories of the voice that insists safety is better than risk. Silence is safer than expression. Stillness is easier than movement. But here's the paradox. Every time you obey that voice, it grows stronger. It learns that you will. Listen. It begins to take ownership of your life as though it were the master and you the servant. Science has tried to explain this. Psychologists say the brain evolved to produce an inner narrator, a running commentary that helps us analyze, predict, and survive. It was useful when we lived in caves, when every decision could mean life or death. The voice warned us, don't go near the dark cave, a predator might be inside. Don't eat that plant, it might be poisonous. But in the modern world, that survival mechanism hasn't gone away. It has just shifted. Instead of lions and snakes, the voice now warns us about embarrassment, failure, rejection. The problem is, it doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. It reacts with the same intensity, flooding us with fear, even when we're only giving a speech or sharing an idea. Philosophers have wrestled with this, too. Some traditions call the voice the ego. Others call it conditioning. Some say it is the sum total of your past experiences, trying to protect you from pain by predicting the future. But here's the key. Across cultures, across centuries, wise teachers have said the same thing. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears it. You are the silent witness, the presence behind the noise. Consider this. If you sit quietly and pay attention, you'll notice that the voice changes constantly. One day it tells you you're amazing. The next day it tells you you're worthless. One moment it urges you to take a risk. The next moment it warns you not to. If you were truly this voice, you would be just as unstable, just as inconsistent. But the deeper you, the observer, does not change. You were there as a child, hearing the first whispers of thought. You were there as a teenager, drowning in comparisons. You are here now, hearing these words. The voice shifts like weather, but you, the awareness, remain like the sky. Think about clouds. They drift across the sky, forming shapes, breaking apart, reforming again. Sometimes they are dark and stormy, sometimes they are light and beautiful. But none of them define the sky. The sky is vast, open, unchanging. In the same way, thoughts are clouds, but you are the sky. When you identify with the clouds, life feels turbulent. When you remember you are the sky, there is peace, no matter what passes through. This is not just philosophy. It is practical. Imagine you are about to take a leap in your life. Apply for a dream job, confess your feelings to someone you love, create something new. The voice rises up with fear. You'll fail, don't do it, you're not ready. In the past, you might have obeyed, but now, if you remember that you are not the voice, something shifts. You see the thought for what it is, a cloud passing through. You acknowledge it, but you don't have to act on it. You can move forward anyway, and when you do, you discover a freedom that feels almost miraculous. But how do you practice this? How do you step back from something that feels so deeply woven into your identity? One way is to simply observe. When the voice speaks, notice it like a curious scientist. Label it gently. That's a thought. That's fear. That's memory. By naming it, you create distance. You remind yourself that if you can observe the thought, then it cannot be the essence of who you are. Another way is to pay attention to the body. When the voice becomes loud with worry, your body responds. Your chest tightens, your stomach churns, your jaw clenches. If you pause and breathe deeply, focusing on the sensations in your body, the voice often loses its grip. It is as though the spotlight of your attention shifts from the noisy narrator to the present reality of your breath, your heartbeat, your senses. And in that presence, the chatter fades into the background. Spiritual teachers have long pointed to this truth. In meditation traditions, the practice is to sit and watch the mind without getting lost in it. At first, it feels impossible. The thoughts are too many, too loud, but with time, you realize you don't have to follow every thought. You can watch them come and go like cars passing on a highway, and eventually a strange stillness emerges. That stillness is you, the one beyond the voice. This realization transforms struggles into opportunities. The next time you feel doubt rising, instead of seeing it as an enemy, you can see it as a reminder. Ah, there's the voice again, but I am not it. Each time you do this, you strengthen the distance, the space between the chatter and the truth of who you are. And in that space, new possibilities open. Let's take an example. A man preparing to run a marathon hears the voice every morning. It's too cold. You're too tired, you'll never make it. But he laces his shoes anyway. At first, the voice screams louder, angry that it is being ignored. But as he continues running mile after mile, the voice begins to lose its authority. Eventually, he hears it but doesn't care. He runs not because the voice approves, but because he has discovered something stronger, the choice to act beyond thought. The same applies to creative work. A writer sits in front of a blank page. The voice mocks. You have nothing to say. No one will care. It won't be good enough. In the past, the writer may have given up, but now, with awareness, they recognize the thought as just another cloud. They begin typing anyway. Slowly, words appear. The voice doesn't stop, but it no longer dictates. The act of writing becomes an act of freedom, a declaration that the voice is not the ruler of the soul. This understanding is not about silencing the inner voice, it's about no longer identifying with it. The voice may always be there like background noise, but when you know it is not you, its power dissolves. It's like watching a play on a stage. The actors perform, the story unfolds, but you know you are the audience. You watch with interest, but you don't mistake the play for your life. And here is where the real power lies. Once you stop identifying with the voice, you begin to hear something deeper. Beneath the chatter, there is a quieter presence, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Call it intuition, call it the soul, call it awareness. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is that it feels like home. It feels like the place you've been searching for all along. When you live from this place, decisions become clearer. Fear may still whisper, but it doesn't control you. Doubt may still knock, but it doesn't lock the door. You begin to act from presence rather than reaction, from clarity rather than confusion. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes real. And in that realness, you find freedom. So ask yourself now, if the inner voice is not truly you, then who are you? Are you the endless chatter, or are you the awareness that hears it? Are you the storm of thoughts, or are you the sky that holds them all? When you begin to live from the answer, everything changes. This is the philosophy at the heart of transformation, not an abstract idea, but a lived truth. The voice is not really you. You are the awareness, the observer, the presence. And the moment you realize this, you are no longer a prisoner of the voice. You are free to live, to act, to love, to create, without waiting for permission from The chatter inside your head. There comes a time when knowing the truth is not enough. You can understand that the voice in your head is not who you are. You can nod along with the philosophy. You can even experience small glimpses of freedom, but the real test comes when you begin to live it. This is where the journey shifts, from understanding to action, because awareness without courage is like a flame without fuel. It glows for a moment and then fades away. To truly break free from the grip of the inner voice, you must step into the world and live as though you are more than its words. Think of a child learning to walk. They do not wait for the voice in their head to approve. They fall, they stumble, they cry, but they rise again. The inner chatter of self-doubt hasn't yet taken root, so they act naturally, courageously, with an innocence that allows them to keep trying. But as adults, we often stop living this way. We wait until we feel confident. We wait until the voice is quiet. We wait for the perfect moment that never comes. And in waiting, life slips through our fingers. The truth is, confidence is not what precedes action. It is what follows it. You don't silence the voice by obeying it. You weaken it by defying it. Every time you act despite fear, despite doubt, despite the critic inside your head, you prove to yourself that you are more than the voice. And each small victory builds upon the next, until one day you realize that the life you once thought impossible is the life you are already living. Think of the stories of people who have transformed their lives not by erasing fear, but by walking through it. There was once a man who dreamed of writing a novel. For years he hesitated. The voice inside said, "You're not talented. No one will care. You'll embarrass yourself." And so the pages remained blank. One day he decided to try anyway. He wrote a single page, then another. The voice didn't disappear. It mocked him at every step. But he kept going. Months turned into years, and eventually a book was born. It didn't become a bestseller. It didn't change the world, but it changed him, because he had finally stopped waiting for silence and chose to act in the presence of noise. Or take the story of a woman who wanted to travel the world. The voice told her she was irresponsible, that she would run out of money, that people would think she was foolish. But the longing in her heart grew louder than the chatter in her mind. One day, she bought a ticket. She was terrified. She cried on the plane. But when she landed in a new country, when she walked streets she had never seen, when she spoke with strangers who welcomed her with smiles, she realized something astonishing. The fear had been a cage made of. The motivational build-up begins with this recognition. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. Readiness is an illusion created by the inner critic to keep you frozen. The truth is, no one ever feels ready. Every person who has accomplished something meaningful did it with trembling hands and a pounding heart. They didn't wait for confidence. They created it by acting. Think of the greatest figures in history, the inventors, the leaders, the artists, the dreamers. Do you think they never heard the voice of doubt? Of course they did. They felt fear just as you do. They questioned themselves just as you do. The difference is not that their voice was silent, but that they stopped bowing to it. They chose action. They chose courage. They chose to trust the pull of their soul more than the chatter of their mind. You have the same choice every single day, and you don't need to climb mountains or write books or start companies to practice it. You can begin in the smallest ways. Start the project you've been postponing. Say the words you've been holding back. Make the call you've been dreading. Each step builds momentum. Each step reminds you that the voice is not you. Each step is a rebellion against the prison of thought and a return to the freedom of being alive. Imagine your life 5 years from now if you continued to obey the voice. Picture the opportunities missed, the dreams untouched, the relationships unformed. Now imagine your life if you chose courage instead. Picture the growth, the memories, the experiences, the pride in knowing you lived fully. The gap between those two futures is not talent or luck or circumstance. It is simply the choice of who you listen to, the voice of fear or the voice of your heart. And here is where the motivational energy builds into something undeniable. The world does not need a quieter version of you. It does not need you to play small so that others feel comfortable. It does not need you to silence your gifts or hide your passions. The world needs the full expression of who you are. And that full expression will never come if you continue mistaking the inner critic for yourself. Every time you say yes to your deeper self, you give permission for others to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your decision to live beyond the voice becomes a light for someone still trapped inside their own. And in this way, breaking free from the voice is not just about you. It is about everyone you will inspire by living authentically. So let this be the moment you stop waiting. Let this be the moment you decide that fear will no longer be your master. Let this be the moment you step into life with trembling hands, knowing that trembling is not weakness. It is proof that you are alive, proof that you are growing, proof that you are daring to live beyond the script of your inner critic. The build-up leads here, the realization that your inner voice is not really you, and that the only way to prove it is to live as though it isn't. Every act of courage, every risk taken, every time you choose to move despite doubt, you reclaim your life from the chatter that has stolen it. You remember who you are. You remember that you are not the storm, you are the sky. You are not the voice, you are the awareness. And when you live from that truth, nothing can hold you back. There is a moment in every journey when understanding transforms into awakening, when words become lived truth, when the idea that the inner voice is not you shifts from an interesting concept into a life-shattering realization. It is not a quiet moment. It is not neat or tidy or gentle. It is fierce. It is raw. It is the kind of realization that brings you to your knees, because you suddenly see just how much of your life you have spent bowing to a voice that was never yours. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff with the wind howling around you. You look down and see the drop, terrifying and endless. Your inner voice screams, "Don't jump, don't risk, stay where it's safe." But then, something within you, the part that is deeper than words, older than fear, truer than thought, whispers, "You were born to fly." The emotional climax of this journey is that instant when you choose the whisper over the scream, when you let go of the false self and leap into the unknown. For years, you may have lived as a prisoner. Every choice second-guessed, every dream diluted, every mistake magnified. The voice inside built walls around you so tall that you forgot the sky even existed. But then one day, a crack appears in the wall. A light slips through. You realize the prison was never made of stone or iron. It was made of words. Words you repeated until you believed them. Words you mistook for truth. And in that instant of recognition, the walls crumble. You see the sky. You feel the sun. And for the first time in your life, you understand that freedom was never something to find outside. It was always within you. Tears often accompany this moment. Not tears of sadness, but tears of release. Tears for all the years lost to a voice that never belonged to you. Tears for the dreams you buried, the risks you never took, the love you denied yourself because you thought you were not enough. But those tears also carry healing. They wash away the weight of regret. They cleanse the soul. And after the storm of tears passes, there is stillness, a stillness so profound that you feel as though you are meeting yourself for the very first time. In that stillness, you begin to see that the voice in your head is like a radio constantly playing in the background. It chatters, it complains, it predicts disasters that never come, it criticizes without end. But you are not the radio, you are the listener, and the listener can always choose to change the station, or better yet, to turn the volume down and simply enjoy the silence. What a revelation that is, to know that silence has always been available, hidden beneath the noise, waiting for you to return to it. And when you experience this silence, even for a moment the world looks different. Colors seem richer. The air feels lighter. You hear the laughter of children and realize it is the sound of freedom itself. You notice the way sunlight dances on leaves and feel an unexplainable joy, as if the universe itself is celebrating your awakening. This is not imagination, it is reality, seen without the distortion of the inner critic. This is where the emotional climax deepens. You realize that the inner voice has not only shaped how you see yourself, but also how you see others. For years, you judged, compared, and resented, not because you are unkind, but because the voice inside was constantly judging you. And when you step out of that voice, you suddenly see people with new eyes. You see their struggles hidden beneath smiles, their courage beneath fears, their beauty beyond imperfections. Compassion floods your heart. You stop needing to compete because you no longer measure yourself by the voice's endless comparisons. You stop needing to prove because you finally know who you are without words. Imagine walking into a crowded room after this awakening. Once you would have entered with a storm of thoughts. Do they like me? Am I good enough? What if I say something foolish? But now, there is stillness. You walk in quietly, fully present. You smile, not because you are trying to impress, but because joy flows naturally. You listen deeply, not distracted by your own rehearsed lines, but curious about the person before you. And something magical happens. People feel your presence. They sense your authenticity. They are drawn not to the image you project, but to the real you shining beneath it all. This is the transformation the voice never wanted you to discover. That your deepest power is not in controlling the world, but in being free from the illusion inside your mind. The voice thrives on your fear, but once you stop feeding it, once you live from awareness instead of thought, the fear dissolves. What remains is courage. What remains is peace. What remains is love. The climax of this journey can be terrifying, because it often requires letting go of identities you clung to for years. The achiever, the perfectionist, the victim, the strong one, the funny one. Whatever masks the voice built to protect you, you now see them for what they are. Costumes. Useful perhaps, but not who you truly are. And to drop them feels like death. But it is not death, it is rebirth. It is the falling away of everything false, so that what is true can finally breathe. And what is true? That you are not broken, that you are not lacking, that you are not the endless criticisms in your mind. What is true is that you are life itself, experiencing this brief miracle of existence through human form. The voice is just weather passing through the sky of your being. You are the sky. You are vast, open, infinite. No storm can damage you. No cloud can define you. You have been free all along. When this realization lands fully, it does more than inspire, it transforms. You begin to live with a new kind of boldness. You take risks, not recklessly, but fearlessly. You love, not cautiously, but wholeheartedly. You forgive, not reluctantly, but completely, because you see that holding on to resentment only serves the voice, not the soul. You savor small moments, the taste of food, the warmth of touch, the sound of rain. Life is no longer something to rush through or fix. It is something to cherish. And perhaps the greatest gift of this climax is this. You realize that the voice may never disappear entirely, but it no longer rules you. It can shout, complain, and criticize, but you see it for what it is, noise. And like noise, it can fade into the background while you continue to live fully. This is the freedom you have been seeking all along, not the absence of the voice, but the recognition that it is not you. Picture yourself standing in front of a mirror. For years, why?